Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave, and 1 week when this image pops up, I'm going to be waving a glow stick.
What the fuck? And I'm Sean. Welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a quickly positive eye. What the fuck?
A quickly positive eye, guys.
Positive eye.
That's right. This is a positive criticism podcast. We try to keep it positive. We are the love of cinema. So we buzz each other anytime we say anything negative at all, whether it's about each other, whether it's about this film, whether it's about a good old-fashioned square aspect ratio. You're going to hear this sound. That sound means we're taking a drink, and we hope you drink along with us.
So, pour yourselves a glass. And also, I just want to quickly question, what the fuck is going on? Like, John gets married, Jeff moves in with a girl, and all of a sudden, for the first time in 5 years, we're sneaking romance dramas into our rotation. It's like, organize your own fucking date nights, guys.
Yeah, but this is about people wanting to leave the relationship. Cheers,
Yeah,
guys.
I was trying to say, this is the...
We're all very
Did I
happy.
say prickly, positive, critical eye?
I think it was crickly.
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 Strictly.
It's when your shoulders out,
You
but you're
threw me
still
with
kind of happy.
your glow stick. Are you talking
Sorry.
about because it's raining in New
My
York?
glow stick often does throw
Pouring
people.
in New York.
No, just because of the music.
Sneak that one in. This is great.
Ew. What an
People we
intro.
drink for real. We have a YouTube that Dave's trying to push here as well, which is going pretty good for us. So please
Trying
get
to
on
push,
the
it's
YouTube,
going
give us a
great, guys.
sub. Yeah, so go ahead and please subscribe. You can watch us do this for real.
We've had
Dave
5
sanctions
subscribers
that.
in the last 28 days. It's great. So hit that button, people.
Yeah, that compounds over time. That's 7
Yeah.
and then 15 and then yeah, can't wait. No, we're doing great. We have sponsors that John's going to shout out here in a second. John, you want to shout some sponsors out of the Love of Cinema podcast?
Oh, yeah, we have a beer sponsor. Dave's drinking one for sure. I don't know if Jeff is drinking one of his, but this is Mr. Carlos Barrozo's beer. We have his link in the show notes, cbarrozo.beer, if you want to go to his handle and like, love, do all the things for him. We also have a music artist in residence that goes by the name Dasein, Dasein. You can find their handle and their link in the notes as well. Go to all of their usual music platforms. You can find them there and you can download, stream. You're very welcome. That shit is awesome. All right.
Awesome.
Okay.
Guys, no mini
So-
reviews today. This is different for us.
I saw you've got the white lid there, Jeff. What's your favorite? Now we've kind of tried them all.
Just the white, yeah, just the white lid. Let me see. Well, the one with the hop on it is the bubbliest, hoppiest IPA. I think the red is actually my favorite.
Me
I think
too.
The red is my favorite.
The
Is it
one,
really?
the one that he gave you did like, oh, I think I got it wrong. No, it's my favorite.
Just simple and easy.
And
That's why
smoky.
Carlos brewed these.
Little
He brewed
smoky.
these fresh for us. There's no additives, no preservatives, so it's one of those ones you got to drink kind of quick. It's not built to last, but it's healthy. I think it's healthy, right? It's basically like
It's
a green
beer.
juice.
It's definitely not healthy. Don't drink, kids.
Say it to Carlos. Well, kids definitely don't drink.
I don't have any of these beers, listeners. I'm
John,
just
you're very far
watching
away in
from
Southern
afar,
California.
You moved.
Oh,
You
so-
knew what this was.
pining.
How is
Yeah,
Southern
yeah,
California?
yeah.
What's the vibe over there? Mid
Pretty
August.
nice. It's pretty
Anything
nice.
getting-
It's pretty warm.
Anything getting back
but,
into production or what?
Yeah. Well, the Teamsters, I think, are the only ones they were holding out for.
I thought they were
right?
back too.
I think they have
Because
signed
Teamsters fall under
now.
IATSE, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
But,
think they no. Well, they had their own contract, but I think everything is starting to gear up. I do know from my actor friends. I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but I have heard that auditions are really picking up, which is always a good sign.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I know. I get the production list email every week or whatever, and yeah, the amount of stuff listing LA now is tripled in the last I would say month.
Good for you.
thank Christ.
Thank you. I hear there's a lot of people who make films in Los Angeles, so I guess that's a good place for the business to be a booming.
I
They
guess
say.
so.
Well, people, this
Yep.
is our brief encounter episode. We've been using the random year generator to spin a random year to go back in time and give you some context. What other movies came out that year? What else was going on in the world in 1945? I can't think of anything for sure. And then so that way you can kind of piece together how all
Of
these
course you
amazing
can't. You're American. That's when they thought it ended, right?
I will say there's some fun trivia where it was like the Americans liberated Philippines, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
what? And then I read that, and like MacArthur storms the Philippines. And I was like,
yeah,
wait,
right.
why were we
Yes.
storming /
Yeah.
liberating places that we were not at war with? I anyway, and then the Brits freed Vietnam, or the Vietnam was free from France. I'm sure everything. Yeah. Anyway, it's reading these stuff in
Yeah,
hindsight
that whole
hilarious.
Vietnam France thing, a lot of people don't even know about.
Does 1945?
That's because they cut out that scene in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, they didn't.
Oh,
They
good.
didn't talk
It was
about
too long anyway.
1945, and for both of you, shut up. So yeah, we'll give you some more context, and yeah, usually we'll do a mini review of something that came out this week. But John's seeing Romulus this week, so maybe we'll get that mini review next week, which is exciting. We like to drink a little bit for real and do some gripes to get us drinking. So if you need to get to your brief encounter conversation, just scoot ahead a little bit today. Check the show notes. We're very accurate in our descriptions of when these conversations happen.
Or if you go to the YouTube version of the podcast, which also has video, the chapters are actually clickable. You can scoop through to wherever you want to be. They're labeled too.
You've been giving us more and more chapters because I keep having to type them in with their timestamps. I'm like, Jesus fuck Christ, I got to type in 9
when we have too many reviews, you got to chapter them.
That's true. We got to keep it.
At least you don't have to scoop through and find it anymore. I send you the list.
No, it's very helpful, actually. Thank you so much. Thank you for editing and producing the podcast and all the video content as well.
No, fuck you.
Do you have anything you want to gripe about to just get the drinks flowing a little bit before we talk about 1945's David Lean directed Brief Encounter, currently available on Prime to stream if you sit through a 1.5-minute ad? I think it's everybody.
I got it on Max.
Oh,
it's on Max, it's on Prime, and it's on Criterion right now.
Yeah, it's on everything.
Shit.
There's like 11 options to watch this thing.
So I watched the ad. I could have saved myself that 1.5 minutes.
Could have.
Fuck.
I'm surprised they had an ad at the beginning of it because I usually don't hit the old movies, but I have a little bit of something.
All right, go ahead, Dave. Set the 1 minute gripe timer.
What's the opposite of a gripe? Because I think that's kind of what I do. But I went twice in the last recent history to Times Square AMC, and I know we give Times Square AMC a lot of shit on this show. Me in particular. And I just want to say I had 2 very pleasant, non-incidental experiences at Times Square AMC. The staff were amazing. The screening was great. Audience behaved, which I know they have no control over, but still good. Yay. Times Square AMC seems to be turning it around a little.
Oh, so what's the statistical, what's the over-under that you're going to have a good experience at the Times Square AMC?
It's about 75 to 1.
I don't think I've ever heard you say that sentence.
But Dave, 2 points makes a line. If you go back again next time and you have another good experience, then that's the new bar. That is what it is.
Yeah, it's 5 points to Hufflepuff for Times Square AMC.
Wow.
You say 5 points to Hufflepuff. Get out of here with that.
What are the odds they saw the video we released?
Maybe they're like, he's coming. He's here.
They're lower than you having another good experience at AMC.
Yeah.
All right.
John, you want to gripe anything? You want to gripe about anything or get anything off your chest here while we get the drinks flowing?
No, man, I'm fucking groovy. COVID is still flying around.
Yeah.
Nice.
We know. I had it a couple of weeks ago.
Whoa.
Why is Jeff acting surprised? I did the show with COVID. How drunk are you during these episodes?
No, I know you did it with COVID. We remember it very well. You almost passed out right afterwards. But you decided to leave a message for the Matt and Mark show anyway, for me being on their show. And I can't believe you had the lucidity to do that. No, but just you had it, and then John had.
Jesus Christ.
So John, you don't want to gripe, except that COVID's back.
Back with a vengeance, I guess.
We're actually having the highest number in 2 years.
I know. It's fucking weird, man.
So, stop snogging everyone. Everybody.
Oh, boy. Oh, God. All right.
Okay, don't do that, but wash your hands.
Jeffrey.
What do I do? Oh, I'll do this one.
Here we go.
Just put some water in the coffee cups. I was thinking about Presumed Innocent, and Jake Gyllenhaal he's an Academy Award nominated actor. He's great, and there's nothing in that cup. The cup is fucking empty.
I know exactly what moment you're talking about.
and it's like, okay, at this point, I know you sit there and be like, well, just act. Or hold Laurence Olivier, like, dear boy, why don't you try acting? It's like, just put the fucking water in the cup. And Dave, if you're sitting there saying, well, the sound, good. Let me hear the sloshing of some shit, because there is and then I don't care. It's not about how you put it on the table. You can just tell. You tell. I drove with coffee today. If I had an empty cup, it would have been a very different experience. Put fucking
wouldn't be all over his
water
crotch.
in the coffee cups. If Jake Gyllenhaal sucks at this, then just let's make it an industry standard. Just do it. Fuck up. You're not going to spill on the costumes. It's fine. He's not going to spill on the costumes. Put water in the coffee cup.
It's almost like Australian accents. There's like 2 actors in the world that can get it right and make it look like they've actually got something in their coffee cup. Everyone else fucks it up.
It's hard. And then when they put it on the table, I'm sure like a sound person's like, well, I have to go fix that because that sounds like, like this airy like sound. Just, oh, God.
I know. This is a medium, folks, where not everybody does this, but you'll have production designers who put little distinct character details in production design and sets that are never, ever going to be seen by a camera. And something like what you're bitching about, Jeff, is somehow missed in reality. Like it's never really made sense to me.
How is there not a PA that's like, excuse me, or a director's assistant or something that's to continuity is like, guys.
We don't close doors in movies.
No,
and we don't put water in coffee cups.
God, that's still one of my favorite rants. Is just close your doors.
I bet they close the fucking door in Aliens.
But it's the Scorsese thing during the Irishman.
Apparently they don't. That there's one shot literally where they're coming through a door, but
like the third director's assistant had to say, Al Pacino, the way he just sat down looked like an old man. It's like, don't worry, we have the facial. We're going to de-age him. They're like, he looks like a grandfather when he sits down, and he's supposed to be 30. And Scorsese says, well, you tell him, right? There's got to be somebody on set that's like, that cup looks like shit.
I call bullshit. Yeah.
It's also clean. If it's coffee, it's going to have like the little smudgy,
it's the script soup, man. It's the script soup.
He's not washing that cup. He's used that 3 days.
Ugh.
Simple things, folks. We're going for reality.
All right. You guys ready to get into our featured segment? Anything else?
Yeah. Let's do it. I'm excited.
Ready to set up 1945?
Yeah, do it.
So
dude.
Friends, we have...
I've been wanting to hear you set up the year 1945 for a week now.
I gotta say this. We always start with the box office, so we will.
I'm expecting at least 8 text messages in the morning. Can you cut this out? Can you cut?
No.
No way.
So this movie, it rides the line. So if you look it up on Wikipedia or on IMDb, it is a 1945 movie, but it's released in America. So things like awards, and it actually won the Cannes Film Festival top prize in 1946. So by all measures, it's a 1946 release, but it's a 1945 film. Maybe you can use those words or not, but it was released in the UK in 1945. But the award season things, it's all 1946. So I usually do some Oscars trivia with this, and I still will. But we can't really contextualize this film with it. However, it is important to note, I think this is important for our film, getting into what happened in 1945. This is considered to be the #2 greatest British film of all time by the British Film Institute. Do you two remember what #1 is?
Absolutely. Dave, do you remember?
I can't remember the name of it now. It's gone from my head all of a sudden, but we did it.
The Third Man.
The Third Man is #1. And this is #2, Brief Encounter. And actually, David Lean has 3 of the top 5 films.
Say, yeah.
Did you see that
number
stat?
3? What's number 3?
3 is Lawrence of Arabia. And then there's a Hitchcock.
Well.
And then there's a Hitchcock. And then I think it's Great Expectations.
And Lawrence of Arabia is only #3 because people are still trying to finish it.
I have it.
It is Great Expectations. So David Lean has 3 on there. Yeah, Great Expectations is number 5.
And
so the top 5 are The
4.
Third Man, Brief Encounter, Lawrence of Arabia, The 39 Steps, and Great Expectations. That is badass.
So that's pretty.
And Train Spotting is number 10.
I love that out of nowhere. Like, we need something somewhat contemporary. Let's do the heroin movie from 1946 with the baby and the.
That was the intern's suggestion.
Yeah. So anyway, we're still going to count this as a 1945 movie. There's some great shit about the making of this movie in the year 1940. It literally was went in pre-pro, was made, and then was released in the UK all in 1945, and that's what the legacy is. So anyway, let's set up the 1945 film year. Are you ready, friends?
Go.
To guess what the #1 highest grossing film of this year is? And I got 2 different sources that said this is #1, and then there's discrepancies after that because who was keeping track? What do you think #1 was?
I could not guess.
I think #1 I think number one was Mildred Pierce.
I actually don't see that on this list that I'm looking at all, but that is a great 1945 year. No, what I have as number one is The Bells of St. Mary's, which came out December 6th, 1945. So it's also like, is it a 1945 or a 1946 movie? And it's a Bing Crosby, Ingrid Bergman movie directed by Leo McCarey. Yeah.
First introduction of the Naughty Nuns.
Is that right?
No, I made that up.
Jesus. Come on, Dave.
Bing Crosby's had a lot of number one movies, by the way. Okay, I'm just going to go through the whole 10 here. You got Leave Her to Heaven comes in at number 2. I'm just looking at Wikipedia, guys, just so you know, fuck it. Box Office Mojo, the numbers, they're all over the place. Spellbound is number 3, according to this list. There's your Hitchcock for the year. The Valley of Decision, Anchors Away, Weekend at the Waldorf, Thrill of a Romance is at number 7. Those 4 movies in a row there were all MGM releases. The Lost Weekend, Paramount Pictures, number 8. State Fair, 20th Century Fox is number 9. And National Velvet is number 10. Now, one movie that was number 2, according to Box Office Mojo, which is not on this list that I'll shout out, is called Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad is a 1945 American sexploitation film. That's right, a 1945 sexploitation film directed by William Bedwin, largely produced by the exploitation filmmaker and presenter Kroger Babb. It's considered the most successful film within its genre of sex hygiene films. Although it faced numerous legal challenges and was condemned by the National Legion of Decency, it became one of the highest grossing films of the 1940s.
Anything that has Legion at the start of its name is never a good thing.
Is that
Imagine
crazy?
how many exposed ankles were in that film. What do you think?
I know, yeah. One guy pulled he was just wearing a singlet.
Jesus
and
Christ.
Reminder, the movie's called Mom and Dad.
That's so weird. What the fuck, dude?
A couple other fun facts from this year. In January 26th, the film National Velvet, starring Mickey Rooney and Elizabeth Taylor, came out. Elizabeth Taylor was 12 years old, and it propelled her to stardom.
Damn.
Elizabeth Taylor. Let's see. Oh, the restricted release of Kohlberg. There's some shade in this one, so I kind of want to read it out. Restricted release of Kohlberg, an historical epic, which is one of the last Nazi Germany propaganda pieces in war-torn Berlin, comes out in a restricted release. The cast had 187,000 people credited, including obviously military personnel. So it's one of the few movies where more likely than not, more people were in the movie than watched it.
Wow.
That came out.
Yeah.
Son of Lassie, the second Lassie film, the first ever to be filmed using... Dave, damn, try to get your Nazi joke in before I go move on to Lassie. The second Lassie film and the first ever to be filmed using the Technicolor monopack method, where a single magazine of film is used to record all of the primary colors. Prior to this method, the most popular recording method was the 3-strip Technicolor, which simultaneously used 3 individual film magazines to record the primary colors.
Try and load that motherfucker these days.
Lassie movie, Son of Lassie. Italian neorealism in film is officially
another exploitation film.
And the Paramount Pictures theatrical short cartoon titled The Friendly Ghost is released on November 17th and introduced a ghost named Casper. We should also say at the Nuremberg trials, a documentary on the Nazi concentration camps directed by none other than John Ford is exhibited as evidence. There's John Ford when Republicans were anti-Nazi. Yeah. A couple things that happened in the awards, which again had nothing to do with our movie.
I'm not buzzing it.
The best film went to The Lost Weekend. Best director, Billy Wilder, won for that. Best actor also went to Raymond for The Lost Weekend. So there you go. Best actress went to Joan Crawford for Mildred Pierce. Supporting actor, James Dunn for Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Supporting actress, Anne Revere for National Velvet. We'll shout out a couple other movies in a second, but let's do that, and then I'll do the context of the year before going into the film. There's a lot of good movies this year. What are some ones that stood out to you?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Lost Weekend because that movie is absolutely incredible. Picture of Dorian Gray, we should mention. You talked about the Italian New Wave, Rome Open City by Roberto Rossellini came out this year, which was, that movie is literally like filmed in locations, war-torn Italy. I mean, it is remarkable, sad. But definitely worth watching. And God, there was one more that I wanted to mention, but yeah. What about you, Dave? Anything?
Nope, I'll leave that there because I
Okay.
don't know much. I don't watch a lot of these films.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's like the Thin Man Goes Home. It's like there's a lot of obviously A Tree Grows in Brook that I
Thin
mentioned
Man
before.
A
Goes
whole different
Yeah,
film in the
Picture of Dorian Gray.
2000s.
I feel like I've seen Angers Away like on old TV or something, but and they tried to make like a Rhapsody in Blue movie. Did we say Meet Me in St. Louis? You said that, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh, sorry, we talked about it last week. Well, there you go. So yeah, honestly, not a ton of things. Maybe because 1944 was a tough year for um, thinking about anything other than D-Day and two wars.
Well,
So a couple of
they had to
things.
produce a lot of film. I think they were still rolling out a lot of film because they needed people to go and see the newsreels
I see.
because
Well,
that was the
hey,
only place they could get them.
well, speaking of the news rant, well, we'll talk about the cameras here in a second, but 1945 film year, the USS Indianapolis is sunk by Japanese submarine. That's no good. VE Day is May 7th. I thought it was May 8th, but May 7th is when Germany surrenders. This is important for our film, not to segue too soon, but they were filming Brief Encounter in May. It wrapped filming. And it wasn't so much that they wanted to give the cast the day of celebrating Victory in Europe Day in Britain, in England, where they had to film far away from London. Dave, my audio just cut out. So great, you're gonna have to use some other shit. Fuck.
Ah, yes.
They got to stitch it together.
What is going on with that thing?
It's crazy, right? But they had to. I'm gonna start a new recording. There we go. They had to film far away from London so that they could have proper aerial signals for when bombs were coming down. And then Victory in Europe happened, and it was actually the cameras. They wanted all of the cameras they can get their hand on to film the celebrations. So they took all of the cameras from the set of our movie to London for a day. So that's why everybody had one day off before resuming filming the next day. Okay, let's see. German concentration camps are liberated. That's tough. Obviously, the nuclear bombs. We all saw Oppenheimer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Following effects from polio as a young man, President Roosevelt dies on April 12th here, 1945. Let's see, 50 nations signed the United Nations Charter, creating the United Nations. U.S. Navy
And then
Flight
did
19 disappears over
nothing.
the Bermuda Triangle. We talked about some of these other things. Mussolini is executed by Italian partisans. Orwell published the anti-Stalinist allegory Animal Farm that came out this year. And then a couple other fun things. The cost of a new house is $4,600 here in America. Average wages $2,400 per year. Monthly rent $60 per month. A gallon of gas is 15 cents, and a girl's dollhouse is $3.19. Oh, and a lady's fur coat is $70, which sounds like a lot of
Yeah,
money.
that's like a month's rent.
That is more than a month's rent for a fur coat, yes.
God damn it.
All
Did you see that mink, that thing in the movie? That woman had a whole fucking fox head when she.
Yeah, I think, you were meant to hate her.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. Oh, we had another audio dropout.
Yeah,
didn't we?
Jeff's just randomly hitting stop to give me something to do.
Jeff's
during my
telling us
days,
to vamp
apparently,
right now because his.
It's not a stop out. They try to connect me to a different microphone. Guys, just Dave works so hard. He's so good at what he does. All right. You ready to segue into
in the
brief
comments,
encounter?
tell us when it swaps over, the audio swaps over.
Let's see if you can place the timestamp. If it does, we'll give you some Love of Cinema coasters. What was that laugh? Okay. The IMDb description is very short, so I'm going to read it. Are you ready? And then we can get into it. Here we go. Meeting a stranger in a railway station, a woman is tempted to cheat on her husband. That's it, based on the Noël Coward
Simple.
play Still
Simple.
Lives, which is a one-act play as a part of a bigger series. We'll talk about that more later. David Lean, one of his first films, about his second or third film, came out a year before Great Expectations. All right. John, Dave, had you ever seen this movie before? I think the answer is no, but maybe you have, John. I can't remember. Have you seen it before? And what did you think of this watch? Go ahead.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you go first?
Still
Dave's
Life.
going first
Still Life, I think is
Wanna
the
say
name
Lives?
of the one act play. Yeah. This movie is it's a masterpiece. I mean, it's so Noël Coward and David Lean made a few projects together at the beginning of David Lean's directing career when he transitioned from an editor to director. And I think this is the third. Right? I don't want to get that wrong. It goes
We had two movies
This
that came out in
Happy Breed,
1945. So
Blithe Spirit, and Brief Encounter. Blithe Spirit and Brief Encounter were both in 45. This Happy Breed
and
is
they're both Noël Cowards.
1944.
So he must have had a good relationship with Noël Coward this year.
All three of them are Noël Cowards. I think This Happy Breed, Noël Coward is uncredited as the original playwright.
Oh.
So anyway, but they're produced by Noël Coward. So you kind of can't separate the two of them. So I think it's important when we move forward to talk about, like, we're talking about Noël Coward writing and producing, and then bringing on this new, very, very talented, prodigious director who was transitioning into a different role in film. He'd already proved himself as an editor. And I think watching David Lean films is a masterclass in thinking as a director about transitions. And I'll mention that throughout. But I think this I first saw this, and Jeff, I think you did too, on stage. It was adapted for the stage in like 2015 or something like that. And it was a remarkable production. I remember when I like realized, oh, it was a movie first. I was like, oh, no way it can be as good as that play. That play was so special. And the play is a different thing. It is so incredibly unique, and the way they adapted it was remarkable, with video screen and her going in and out of real life and a movie and all this stuff.
Musicians on
But
stage.
this film stands on its own too. I put it up there with Casablanca in terms of these contained studio system stories. And this is a British film, so just as we talked about with The Third Man, it's not in the studio system in the sense of the American movies. It was made over there with Noël Coward's company, Cinema-esque or something. Can't remember. It was that at the very front. They produced it together, the four of them. A co-writer, co-screenplay writer, David Lean, Noël Coward, and one other person. The four of them made like a few movies together. Anyway, but it's still in the vein of like, we're taking these contained stories, we're trying to pump them out in wartime. So you can tell, I think one of the most remarkable things about Casablanca and this movie is that they are tiny stories. They are cinematic, controlled pieces that deal with relationships in the scope of something larger. And that is just anyone who thinks that like you need to have flying dragons and, you know, superpowers and stuff to make cinematic material, if you were, something compelling aesthetically and dramaturgically, I think this is like the answer to be like, no, you don't.
Not that there's anything wrong with flying dragons.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when you think that that is the only thing that will pull people to an audience, I will raise you brief
all the nudity as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
How have I not been buzzed yet? Dave's at 11 and I'm at 0.
There you go.
You thirsty?
How about you, Dave?
This was the first time watch for me. Did you get the restored version?
Whatever Criterion has.
Mine,
yes,
mine
it's
had
restored by the
notice.
David Lean Foundation.
Yeah, mine had a notice at the beginning for like it's the restored version. They didn't pull all the grain out of it, which is great.
Yeah,
famously, a lot of the ones getting restored now are getting all the grain pulled with that AI algorithm that removes the noise.
I know, dude. I fucking hate that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's the only way the next generation can watch fucking movies. Who knows?
Maybe.
This one wasn't for me.
Oh.
I think it's I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. I fell asleep and had to skip back and start it. I didn't think it was interesting enough to hold my interest.
Is this a Goodfellas thing? Are you fucking with us, or is this
no,
real?
not at all. This one, I literally fell asleep, and then had to go back and watch the bit I missed. It just wasn't for me. It was. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't interested in it, but there's still some really well made stuff in it. I still have a lot of stuff that I want to highlight later that was brilliant, but yeah, I just don't think the story grabbed me.
What about you, Jeff?
I did love it. I did love it. The stage version that we saw is again an adaptation of the movie.
Jeff was so shocked he forgot to buzz me for that.
Shut up. The stage version was of this, and I remember it was just being very powerful. They had musicians on stage. which is, it's different than the movie because the movie just does that Rachmaninoff, which apparently is what All by Myself, which would become the Celine Dion versions. I'm literally hearing that like during the section where they're like, just one more time. Let's meet one more time. One more, just please. I know that it must end, but one more time. And I'm just hearing all by myself, like in the background, like what the fuck is this? And then I'm like, oh my god, that's Rachmaninoff. That's like one of the greatest piano players of all time, whose hands were so big that only like 10% of pianists in the world can play his shit. Jesus Christ! And it's Celine Dion. Anyway, it's really powerful. I was blown away at how much subtextual acting work they were able to get into this film. But I will say, not to say I'm on Dave's side over here, Dave's team. There was so little that it almost felt like a book where the reader has to paint the picture. There's words on a page or nothing until your imagination comes into play. And I do feel like I was asked to do that a lot. So even though the subtextual work was, again, really, really powerful, especially from Celia Johnson, who's our lead, who plays Laura. I mean, just really just the weight that she feels during this. And, sometimes it's so light and loose, and then a scene will turn on a dime when she hangs up a phone, and then you see the reaction where when she leaves after spending a day with another married man, and she's like, oh my God. Or she comes home, Mad Men style at the end of the day, and then she sees the wife and kids, and it's like, oh, this is actually my life. I did get that. I love that. I can see how it inspired so many other storytellers, not even directors, like writers, people that make things. But I still loved it. I loved it very much. But it's not like I want to live in this world again for another hour and a half. But I felt the inspiration. I felt how meaningful this movie is, though it wasn't like the most powerful hour and a half of my life. But very moving. Very, very, very moving.
I think I just put my finger on what turned me off it, and this has that style of dialogue delivery that I can't stand, where they're just delivering their lines at lightning speed, and then the next line comes in. It's almost like it's a line, it's a line, it's a line. Sometimes there's not enough nuance in that. A lot of the actual really good performances I found were during the silence and the soliloquy stuff, like where she's narrating. But when in the dialogue scenes, it was just back and forth, back and forth. Like,
well, I think that's kind of what. Yeah, two things. I was going to ask you, Dave, if the Noël Coward very Englishness of that dialogue was part of the problem, and then also that the answer is, I think, in what Jeff was saying. I think to appreciate it, it doesn't mean you didn't appreciate it. I don't think it rings true for everybody, but I think the real treasure of Noël Coward's writing is that people talk and behave differently beneath what they're saying. He uses the facade of this English politeness to cover what is actually happening underneath. And voiceover doesn't always work in every film, but I think the brilliance of this film is that you're invited into her mind so that it's not just mise-en-scène behavior.
Yeah.
And I think it's so incredibly brilliant that it's structured in a way so that you're introduced to these characters and you don't realize that it's going to be about them. First of all, literally the physical first time that the camera pans over to them. And then you're in her head wishing she could tell this woman that she doesn't care for on the train just because she's so desperate to tell someone. And if you don't think that is interesting enough, and I think a lot of playwrights and dramatists would have just said, yeah, that's good enough. Let's just get this ball rolling. He waits till she gets home, and then she sits there and narrates to the one person she cannot tell. That is the genius of this structure.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. I must admit, when that woman sat down and just would not stop talking, I was like, never have I ever hoped someone falls in front of a train so much. And she literally mirrored my thoughts.
She was in a good place for that to happen, the train station.
But like she literally mirrored my thoughts 10 minutes later about she wanted to kill her.
And it's another thing I remembered on stage, but I loved how what it did, I guess, dramaturgically, is in a weird way, you start out rooting for this person. Even though, especially, and again, the reason we do the context is this is in 1945. This was banned in Ireland because it was sympathetic towards a what is the word they use? An adulterer. I guess she did kiss another married man. So, but you start out on her side because you're just like, God, can't this woman shut the fuck up? Like, I'm with you. I want to kill her too. And then she is having an affair with her husband and does kiss and does fall in love with another man and, is deeply unhappy and unsettled. And the ending we'll get to too is just like, that really was
And
powerful.
it's funny that whole sequence is literally something that happens at the end of the movie and we go back.
Yeah.
So we're at the end of the story when that comes in.
The fact that this is done through reflection.
It would have to be one of the most clever ways I've seen of like introducing a flashback sequence because she's telling the story. Yeah.
And the fact that she is telling her own story is ultimately why I think he pulls off, and it's not the same thing as Casablanca, but that unfulfilled love theme of doing the right thing in the end is the right thing, whatever that is. I'm not saying moral and ethically, but what they determine as what they believe is the right and wrong thing. I'm interested in characters' truths, not necessarily the obstacles of ethics and morals around them. But what's so brilliant about this is that
it's Casablanca just the story of the same guy in Africa?
Maybe.
There was one scene that looked exactly like that famous scene.
This is palatable, and it's not fluff and melodrama because it's a deconstruction. It is her deconstructing her love and shame in the same breath. Every beat of this movie is her admitting, yes, this is happening to me, and I feel like crap about it. And
embarrassed,
not just in the way, the different ways that they do that. I just find so brilliant. And it builds to, I don't want to give away the ending, but it will build to this place where you think like, oh no. I mean, that last scene when you realize what she ran out of the cafe to do at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get to that point, you think like,
I mean, who hasn't taken a shit on a platform?
I mean, come on. Even though she has decided not to do it, ultimately you think in her heart, she is completely devoted to him until that very last moment, which again I've rung this bell so many times on this episode, on this show, but like endings are so important. Fucking important. The period sentence of this movie changes it entirely.
But just to break around, the thing I did find interesting was the side relationship going on with the conductor and the woman behind the counter. This is a little bit of business where they've obviously got something. You never quite find out 100% what it is, but it's just developing in the corner. I found that a nice little bit of business.
Still Life takes place entirely in that, I guess, like restaurant or whatever, that eating establishment in the train station. Because it's a one act. It's meant to be paired with other one acts. He apparently did 8 of these. Noël Coward wrote them for him and Gertrude Lawrence. So they kind of mixed them up. So it was 3 one acts per night. But yeah, I do think that was fun too. I think they could have done 2 things, which again apparently are in the plays. Not to keep bringing that up, but one thing is that other people didn't really notice. So I guess they kept them in this dream world. So maybe on stage you need to have that for the audience to be like, these people know, they see what's going on, right? So maybe in the movie they decided not to have that, but it was just cool to have life happening, so that it wasn't just like something like One Day. Is that Anne movie or the Anne Hathaway movie?
I thought a lot about that too this time, and I'm glad you brought it up, Dave, because this is my 3rd time seeing this movie, and this was the first time that I was very conscious of what are they servicing, aside being wonderful comedic relief. They're charming, they're funny characters. They're not like these people at all in terms of economic status, and status matters a lot in Britain. I mean, there are different kinds of characters, but this time what really stuck out to me was that, going back to that theme of shame, they are shameless. So you have different kinds of people who are out in the open in the same space being shameless about their courting. Even though, that woman's being a little cheeky, telling the young girl who works for her, like, he's trying to get this from me, and she's
sexual harassment in there as well.
I mean, it's so charming. It's so funny. Oh my God, it was whatever. Anyway, so I just thought the contrast of that was brilliant. And again, it was just as often, if not mostly, her and him observing them as much as it was an objective camera. So it was not as much an objective camera is what I'm saying. So we were supposed to be seeing them, and it made me think even more about what they thought they were doing when they would be able to watch this, because they established this thing where they just people watch the organist, the cello player. They're starting to, they're looking at people, but they keep coming back in the refreshment room and noticing this courting that's going on between these people. I don't know. I just felt that created
that is
deeper
a common theme
cut.
with like clandestine meetings between couples. They watch other people so they don't have to look too closely thlthemselves and what they're doing.
Yeah,
Or just so much. Maybe,
but it
it's
never
even
became. It never became a conscious for them, like you're saying. Like it never, like they never saw them and looked at each other, and they were like, "Oh no, what are we doing?" That was for us to have.
She
that
does
feeling.
constantly lament the fact that she has no conscience about this and stuff like that. Like she should have felt guilty, but she just didn't.
And she felt more embarrassed than
the one thing I
guilty,
noticed was the camera placement.
Shame.
This is foamy. This is really foamy.
Interesting.
The one thing I noticed was the camera placement in certain areas where, like, in their interactions, it's your standard, wides and push-ins and stuff like that. But when she's at home, a lot of it, they're delivering their dialogue away to camera. You only see the back of their head. So, like, there's a whole scene there where they're sitting in front of the fireplace and she's talking to the fireplace. But the husband's sitting right next to her and you see the back of his head and he's talking and they're talking. And it's like we're standing behind them looking over the shoulder.
Yeah, because they're somewhere else, right? The eye contact thing.
Well, it was just like we didn't connect with them because they're not connecting with each other.
Yeah.
Is it? Did it feel? Do you know what I mean? Like it felt like I was reading a book, watching this movie. Not that it's work to read books. I don't mean that, but in the sense that it's like they wanted us to fill in some gaps. They wanted us to do some of that imaginative work.
I'm actually not sure. I would like for you to flesh that out a little bit. I actually didn't resonate with when you said that initially. What are you talking about?
Well, because she spoke like as if everything was very clear, and what we saw on screen was very, I don't want to say obvious, but I did feel like she was able to transcend the lens in the sense that like I was able to see her thoughts. I was able to see her worries, especially her and him a little bit, but he was a little bit more close to the chest and, more of that secondary lead character. But especially when they came home to the family, I feel like I needed to do some place setting work. They didn't do a lot of establishing. They didn't do, I knew what rooms they were in and everything, but it was, I feel like I was having to fill in the space around me and around them a lot. Maybe it's just because there were so many close-ups, and maybe it's just because everything was so simple and so deliberate and specific, especially in their dialogue, the husband and wife, that I was kind of like, I was the house. I filled in the house, almost like those old Japanese films. Like I don't even know what it looked like. I'm just like there trying to sort of.
So are you saying
do the set work?
This was a strength of the film, you're saying, or did you?
Well, certainly if you watch it with no distractions, certainly and go back to 1945, watching it in a theater, like just to be a part of them, like you would for a play, like you would be in the same room with them. I do think that was helpful. It's not something that I'm used to nowadays. I usually get a little more information. I feel like this was so subtextual.
Yeah, I think it made me think back to the that comment. I think we all listened to that Alfonso Cuarón episode, and I mentioned it. Remember when he was saying that, like, with TV, you can kind of not look at the screen and not really lose track of what's happening, because it's not as much about visual storytelling. It's just a smaller screen. I feel very confident that every audience member on a 120-foot single screen, back in the day at their Palace Theater in London would have followed no problem with what was happening here. But
followed.
It is different.
No, not even followed. What I would say is this: you can't only look at the screen. You have to fill in. You have to do some of that extra work. You can't just sit there and like, well, I'm watching the screen, so therefore I have everything. Even though I get it, I'm following it. I need to the point, the.
But don't you think that
the impacts?
But that is because of it. Again, if it worked for you, I think it worked brilliantly. I mean, maybe this is not. I like that it is so limited visually in that sense because it holds it holds her in the entire storytelling visually to subjectivity. This is all a recollection.
Yeah. That's
so
great.
I feel like if they had ever backed away
double
too
the info
much,
there. at some point because she was narrating it, and you're also they used, obviously because they could, they used the camera to show what was happening as well as her saying this was happening. So it was almost like a double up of information there.
Yeah.
But I love that there's a slice of life element to a lot of their whimsical like day trips. There wasn't
Mhm.
a plot. They did that. Or I mean, there was in the sense that like they went to the pictures, they went to this food place, they walked in the park, they crossed
they went
the
to Times
bridge.
Square AMC because upstairs was extra.
Boo.
So there's a
Where
plot
did
in the
that
sense
go?
that there
Where did
was
that pricing go?
a
It went away.
story, but in the sense of like what it does to the whole picture, it's like it actually, I feel like the most of the was done the second that they departed, and then she had to deal with the consequences. I feel like that was the thing, which is just, it's fascinating. It's a different structure. You're just not used to seeing those kinds of structures, and I love that.
Yeah, no,
I
no,
do understand how people could sit there and say, it didn't grip me, a little bored, but like I also get how it's also the most gripping, powerful, inspiring movie you've ever seen. I get both of those somehow.
I mean, we
it's
talked.
the
When
fun
was the
thing
last
about this.
time?
We have different reactions to films.
I've said this before, but like they just don't do. We don't make a lot of romance movies. It was a very thriving genre for a long time, and I'm not saying I pine for the days when they were just pumping them out and stuff, but I think we're so used to not seeing movies that don't have some crazy element to it that would put it into like a genre where like a love story is put into a crime genre, or a love story is put into a supernatural genre, right? We put love stories into every single genre now. I mean, it's kind of like screenwriting 101, right? Where's the person A, person B, or the guy or the girl or whatever, and how do you make their story kind of, it's always story B, isn't it? Yeah, no, honestly, like
the famous
Independence Day has two love stories, technically three if you count his father in him, and they
do still
right?
make romance films. It's just nowhere near as many.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we have talked so rarely about about them, and anyway, so I guess I feel like this is the kind of, the stakes are relatively low, aren't they, for whenever you do like intimate love stories, like especially something like this where it didn't spill over into ruining their families, where now you see like the consequences of what they've done. This isn't really a story about consequences.
You never even really meet his family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that scene with the friend, that friend was awesome. He did such a good job. He played the opposites real well. The friend with the apartment, he asked for
not
the key
angry,
back.
just disappointed.
He's treating the guest, which he knows is sarcasm, but he doesn't wink at it all. That's David Lean. That is like not spoon feeding your audience. When you sit there and be like, I know you're treating your patient because women are different folk. And but can I have the key back, please? Oh, it's like to not even, he clearly knows he was probably bringing a woman to not be a patient. But the way that it was brilliant. I thought it was incredible. I can't believe in 1945 they played the opposite. They didn't wink at they didn't over direct that scene.
That is another thing that I think we can't underplay enough. Like putting on your time capsule hat and and watching this through the eyes of how adult this movie is. You know what I mean? Like even nowadays in most of our Hollywood love stories, like Jesus fucking Christ, you can see it a mile away. And it's so predictable most of the time. And I just have so much respect for, like, even if they had made this story nowadays, like it would have been a pretty fascinating, not predictable, exploration of this kind of unfulfilled loving relationship. But back then, when the code was in full force and they, you really were not supposed to talk about these kinds of things. Classist issues in Britain, puritanical ethical issues in America with the MPAA, and they make a movie like this that isn't cloaked in genre. It is just that, totally exposed. That is, I don't know, that is next level. I just feel like that is so fucking beautiful.
Can we talk about, first things first, those fucking kids. I love these British kids. The way that kid screamed at Laura, our main character, come upstairs at once, mommy, I want to talk to you. Can you imagine if we said that to our parent, and our parents would have been like, excuse me?
They'd come up with a shoe. Like
or a bell. Yeah. Why did the coffee pourer look like a scientific experiment?
It was awesome. I want one of those so bad.
It wasn't a handle. It was a handle that was also a stand. It looked like a beer
That
thing.
thing was awesome.
What's up with the wild horses? It won't drag me away line. Did the Rolling Stones steal this, or is that actually an idiom that like existed for thousands of years that this movie just?
I
like,
think that's a. I don't think Noël Coward. Call me if I'm wrong, folks. Listeners, tell us wrong, but I think wild horses couldn't drag me away if has got to be an idiom that has existed for a long time.
He's a time traveler. I do
an
like
old
right at the
animal.
beginning, like the guy that checks the train and it's right on time and he's happy about it, the conductor guy, and the train's gone. He just walks across the tracks.
Oh,
I'm like, where the fuck do you think you are, man? The LA subway?
Shameless. Yeah. There's no subway coming for another 90 minutes.
Yeah. Dude, have you seen the LA subway though? There's people like run. I saw a guy electrocute himself in the track. He touched the rail.
Yeah, Jesus. It made me feel. Oh, never mind. John,
how about
he was on so much meth he barely felt it. Don't worry about it.
Can we say it's a red flag when a girl pours an entire glass of water in her eye? I think it's a red flag.
I love the
no, that's a medical procedure, dickhead.
Not with a glass of tap water.
Depends on the tap water.
You gotta have saline solution. You gotta put some salt water in there. It's
if you don't have saline, you use the water.
Yeah, I don't know if that was regularly
I'm Gen X.
available
Like
at the time.
Promise.
So, what do you think about the visual aesthetic of the film and how they like the actual camera movement and placement and when it was static and the very noticeable, though I would still say very gentle tilting of the camera.
I like the tilt.
At the very end. It was used so subtly, right?
Subtle? He ended up on a fucking 30-degree angle. You knew that was happening.
Yeah,
it did, but it wasn't a yank and
30-degree angle tilt.
But it wasn't unlike like, the Third Man where they are fucking
degrees, you start wondering, that motherfucker gonna stop? But no, but unlike I did like that. It was used to great effect.
Yeah. And unlike the Third Man, it was done expressively with character as opposed to objectively by a director. Does that make sense?
Then it's not often you do the mid scene to get a camera of that size to do that while it's filming. Not any small accomplishment.
And just the David Lean did that 30 seconds of film is perfectly cut and designed. Like she starts twisting when she starts tilting, when she is going nuts inside in her head. She opens the door. You see her open the door. You see the train going into like past the platform, and you cut to her and she's still stuck in that 30-degree. And then it slowly comes down as she comes down. Like, honestly, that's just pure cinema, dude. I feel like there are so many moments of this movie.
I also found their lighting far more involved than I'm used to in like a film from the 40s.
With all the...
Well, not just that. Some of it was even in the background. Like they just cut them off in the background to leave a section in the shadow. I found it very nicely textured.
Yeah, incredibly well composed. I mean,
did it make you feel reckless and gay?
No.
A little bit. Yes.
What I think is so fascinating about this is that it's so, and it's David Lean. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised by this to see what he eventually did, but it's so fucking controlled. Like every single element of it feels completely designed. And yet I still feel like and maybe it's because of that voiceover, and maybe it's all these elements combining. Maybe it's the dialogue and the juxtaposition of that for like behavior, like subtext, what you were saying. But there's still something that feels very, very urgent and spontaneous about what she is going through, even though it's in a recollection and aesthetically, like there is absolutely nothing even close to something spontaneous or improvisational from the performances. I have a very strong feeling that all of that shit was completely blocked out, planned out, marked out, and they were filling in those gaps. But my God, it just astounds me.
I noticed occasionally they resorted to the theater blackout as well, like where the background dropped out behind her and then came back.
That transition to her living room, what you're talking about, where you see her and you don't see the husband, and he's like, "Where'd you go?" And it lights him up. You were a million miles away.
No, this was in the refreshment room. Like the background would occasionally drop out as she had a thought and narrowed it down to her. Yeah.
Oh God. And I know this is like, it's almost too easy when you have all that fucking beautiful steam rolling around, but all those shots, those location shots at the train station are just fucking,
and the fact that
it is so beautiful.
It was an active, they didn't build a set. It was a real, the Carn Fourth Station, they filmed between 10:30 p.m. and 6 a.m., which just to ask people in 1945 to do that because the morning commute would start after 6 a.m. And sometimes they would actually try to film the trains coming in for
not
real.
Not in the 40s. Everyone started at 9.
And exactly. They didn't have, I don't know how alarm clocks work back then, but they
had a thermometer and all sorts of stuff in it, and a barometer.
They had they tried to film trains coming in, and they had all these lights for the film, and the conductor, they would slow down, and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "We saw these bright lights. We thought there was an accident or something." And it's like, it was a little actual train station, and they would say with Game of Thrones, like, I actually have dust under my fingers, and you can tell on screen. You can't tell that specifically, but you can tell that it feels real because we're really here for 6 months in the middle of nowhere. It's like they were really on a train station. It was not a set. It's fucking insane that they did this.
I'm not even sure how to articulate this.
Hold on, I've got something brewing in my house. I've got to run outside for a second.
Okay.
Something brewing. Oh, fun. Okay, go ahead.
Jesus. I'm not even sure how to articulate this totally successfully, but
while he's gone.
Yeah. Fucking Dave. The fact that there's like like with theater, like we always the go-to design, you can write this into your scripts, of course. We see it a lot in farce, are doors. People coming in and out of doors. It creates this flow, and it creates the potential for who's coming, who's going. Just the nature of setting it at the train station, and in a sense, like again, one act is totally set in this entire place, and that's kind of a background thing. But they're actively going in and out. The fact that he lives in a total opposite direction and her, in the same moment, at the same time, it creates a safe meeting place where that like the rest of the world doesn't really know them there too much. The woman, we do see her coming at the end, but you quickly learn that this is the end, and they were getting away with it for a long time, meeting in this safe space. But also at the exact same time, it is full of potential of what could be coming and going. They could, if they wanted to, they could have gone and gotten on a train and totally just ran away. Like there's always like, I don't know, there's something so compelling about that, as opposed to if they had chosen to set this in a coffee house, not a train station, I think this movie would be half as interesting, and probably the still life play as well. Just literally where it's set.
We know this inspired The Apartment because of the scene, Billy Wilder in his biography, the scene where our main doctor uses a friend's apartment is the inspiration for Billy Wilder for The Apartment, of course. Sorry.
I know. I'm glad you read that. I thought that was great.
Had you saw that?
I did. I just read through some of the trivia. Yeah, I thought that was remarkable.
But there were a lot, and I bet something like sliding doors, like even though it's a good idea, or I'm sure Brief Encounters in the back of people's heads with this whole like, and the doors close, and you're like, well, what if you didn't get on the train? Same thing with Before Sunrise or something, which starts on a train. But it's like this was the first, so this was probably in the back of their mind too.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just feel like there's a Dave. You're back. What was that?
I'm back. Oh no, it's see, my wife's away at the moment, and they're driving back, and they got stuck in traffic, so they just she just got on Grubhub and ordered stuff to get delivered to the house, and I'm like, I'm recording. I think she thinks I just sit here and play video games when she's out. But no, I'm like, I'm recording. She's like, but you should be done soon,
She's usually right.
And I'm like, no, this is a movie that John likes. This is going to go for hours.
This is going to go for so long.
And they just fucking called me because I've got none of the stuff they ordered. I'm like, he's like, do you want to eat this instead? I'm like, yes. So I'm in decisions.
But if anything goes wrong, you just say the famous line from this movie, I'll forgive you if you forgive me. And then you could also say, you know what? You're only middle-aged once.
There's so many funny lines.
Oh, darling, I'm perfectly happy. Yeah.
What did he say in the movie Palace, the second show? He said, all right, the big show's about to start. Stop laughing. Here come the tears, or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. I mean, there's too many lines.
Yeah.
Noël Coward.
Yeah.
Coward.
The laughter stops.
Oh, but wait, all right.
Now here comes the tears.
This is the last thing, because it's the very end. I don't spoiler or whatever. I didn't say it, but like the reason this movie, I think, ultimately succeeds in being more than just an exploration of an adulterer is because of the last line that her husband says. When you realize that he knows she has been away in their relationship, whatever that means, physically, metaphorically, emotionally. And remember, he's been watching that conversation in real time. So you have to also think back and think like he's been noticing this for weeks. And now he's sitting there allowing his wife to kind of slowly return to him over the night of sitting in front of the fire while he does the crossword. And it ends with him saying, "Is there anything I can do better?" And she says, "No, darling." And he says, "Well, you've been away for a long time. Thank you for coming back." I can't remember the exact words, but
yeah, no, that one got me a little.
And it's the line, and then it's her action of pouring into him and going back into their relationship, holding him and crying, blackout. I mean, that is why this movie works. Well, it's not just the other stuff.
That's the first bit of attention he showed her, except for help me with this crossword for the entire movie as well. So,
but then again, this is one of those things. So I will say too, if he tried to show her affection in some of those earlier scenes, would she have embraced it? When she was knitting and he was there, she probably would have said no. You know, even though she's fantasizing about having.
I don't know.
Yeah,
like that's the thing. It might have turned the whole thing around.
It may have, but also
was getting nothing from that guy.
But yes, in their own way. But I also not to make it all. I'm not saying this movie is all about the husband or anything retroactively. But remember how she describes her husband to him when she says medium high brown hair, unemotional and intelligent or something, and he says, "Oh, you say that almost proudly that he's unemotional." Looking back, if you were to do exactly what you said, based on the ending, you know that in his own way, he was tracking what was happening to them, to their relationship, to her. She was pulling away from him. And he's not the gushy, emotional guy, but it built to a place where he went over to her, got down on one knee beside her and said, "Is there anything I can do better? I don't want you to leave me." You know, I feel like he knew something was happening. And I just feel like, again, that adult thing, like, God, that just makes it, that turns it into another level of movie for me. If it had ended with her at the train after it tilts back and you realize, oh, she's not going to kill herself. She is going to go back home. But this is the end of her story with Alec, right? That's when their actual story is over. It wasn't really about them entirely. It was about her and her relationship with him and her family and her husband. Oh man,
it could have. It wasn't just.
Now I'm done.
It could have been anybody.
I'm fucking done.
You see, we're a happily married couple, and I mustn't forget that.
I can't believe he got through that whole speech and no one gushed him.
I can't either.
Can I conclude with this stat right here?
Mm-hmm.
The bad movie that Alec and Laura leave was titled "Flames of Passion."
Passion.
Yes.
Yeah.
An in-joke reference to the 1922 British silent movie. The title resurfaced several years later on a gay porn movie modeled on this movie.
Wow.
All right.
There's a gay porn. There's a gay porn called Flames of Passion that is modeled on Brief Encounter.
I want to know what movie they went to in that.
All right, people, and don't forget the lady behind the bar that was having all the men flirt with her was in the original play, which co-starred Noël Coward and Gertrude Lawrence. All right, people, thank you so much for joining us for the entirety of our Brief Encounter episode 1945/1946, but 1945. So we got to spin the wheel. We got to see what year we're talking about next year.
Where are we going?
We promise we won't just Google movies. We're just
where do you think we're going? Any guesses?
Keep feeling it's the 70s. I'm going to go 79.
Close.
Did we do 79 recently? 78 or 79? I can't remember.
I'm going to go 2012.
Wow.
Here we go.
The year everything was supposed to end.
Uh-oh.
John? 201. Oh my God, you nailed it!
Oh my God.
2012 it is.
Oh my sweet God. 2012.
That's
John
never happened.
Nailed it. Can we look at our buzz counts?
Anyone doubting it, those numbers
Jeff
are
4,
100% random too. Yeah.
They're 100% random.
That is pretty fun. That's a good guess.
All right. Well, we're gonna tell you what movie we're doing next week at the very end of this here episode. But for the next couple minutes, we're gonna tell you what we've been watching. Dave, I'd like to start with you. You want to give the people some recommendations and tell them what you've been watching?
Well, I have a mother-in-law over this week, so we had to watch kids movies. And
Kids
so
movies.
kind of, yeah, like stuff with minimal violence and profanity, etc., like PG sort of stuff. So we watched My Spy and My Spy, the second one, the My Spy 2. The My Spy is fucking hilarious. It's Dave Bautista and this little 9-year-old girl, and he's meant to be investigating the family as part of the CIA, and she outs him straight away. Like, this kid is switched on, and she's really good in it. So, yeah, the first one is fantastic. The second one, they try to introduce new characters, and they take it away from, like, their relationship a little bit. So it's I didn't like it as much, but My Spy is definitely a fun night to sit there and if you want to laugh your ass off at a kid being cute and Dave Bautista being like, what the fuck?
I love Dave Bautista. The fact that he's just like game. He knows he's not Daniel Day-Lewis, so he's like, I'm going to work.
And of course, I've started where I'm halfway through the last season of Umbrella Academy, which came back and got a closing season on Netflix. And then just for fun, ironically, also from 2012, I watched John Carter of Mars.
Sort of from Mars? Sort of from Mars, sort of?
Sort of from Mars, yeah. At Mars, from Mars, of Mars by the end.
But Mars needs moms bombed, so they took the Mars out, and then they got the guy from Friday Night Lights who didn't have the box office appeal.
It's still kind of as crappy as I remember. But
did you know that Dave Bautista has 14 upcoming projects according to IMDb?
I'm really looking forward to Jackpot because it's on Amazon now, and I want to see that. Which is I don't think it's his, but that's coming out.
Dave, is My Spy the Eternal City? Is that what you're talking about?
That's the second one.
Some kind?
That's the second one.
So forgive me for not knowing the My Spy franchise.
Yeah, you fucking idiot.
Yeah, it's got a 5.6 on IMDb. But hey, we love loving movies. John, what have you been watching?
You inspired me to watch the first Twister movie. Now that I've already seen Twisters, if anyone doesn't remember that, I saw that a few weeks ago.
I almost had a gripe from that movie. I almost had a gripe. How bad was he at driving that car on camera? He was not looking at the road. He was not looking at the road. He was looking at her. He was looking out the window. He did some, horrible driving in that movie.
No, in one scene, he's not supposed to be driving well, right? And he drives off the road.
Well, so apparently that justifies the whole movie.
But you are completely right, dude, about what you said. Like, this isn't really a...
Sorry, I should have gushed myself. No, keep talking about how I'm right. I don't use the buttons well after I've been drinking.
You're completely right about how you said that the very, very, very simple plot device to get us into the world of this is simply him needing to get divorce papers signed. And it creates a relationship tension that works for the rest of the fucking movie. It works through the entire movie, and it gets us into a world, and the world reveals the characters. It pulls them in further and further. Yeah. And I enjoyed Twisters, and you did too, but it was a really, really good example of like, that was how movies were made back then. And now in the age of serialized television-driven style writing, apparently you need like 40 more circumstances and like character motivations and all those things. And it did feel different when I was thinking back to the Twisters, which I enjoyed. Yeah. Just the way they set up all these obstacles, like classic screenwriting things for every single character. And it kind of does feel like, I don't know if I cared as much about being in the world because they were telling me I was supposed to care about each of these characters.
Yeah, it's like no one knows how to write ancillary characters anymore.
Well, and their tension, their chemistry is so good, which is great. And she is famous for Normal People, which was a chemistry show, well written, of course. And then she did Fresh, as you know, Dave, and a bunch of other things. Yep. And he started with Top Gun and that Air movie, but then he's done a lot of rom-coms because he's an attractive young man. And it's like the chemistry's good, but is that enough for me to watch over and over again? Just them like looking at each other really well and me feeling their chemistry. Like, what if it's like the Helen Hunt thing where it's I get an entire life. I get a whole 30 whatever years of life every single time I see them on screen.
At the end of Act 2, everybody else disappears from the movie.
It's true.
There's something there. Anyway, and I really am. I'm not even saying that I'm ultimately criticizing Twisters, but you were so right. I noticed the difference. And it does kind of watching movies from the 90s and 80s, whatever. All right, feel it. I also watched, because in preparation for Romulus, last night, Elizabeth's coming to Romulus, so she had never seen any of them. So we watched number 1 and number 2.
Special edition number 2 or normal number 2?
I didn't know there was a special edition.
Oh yeah, there's a special edition of Aliens. There's a whole extra scene in the hospital room, I think, and a whole heap of extra stuff as well. And they released a special edition of it.
This was well over 2 hours, so I bet it was that one. Doesn't matter.
Not
anyway,
necessarily. It's a James Cameron film.
It's on Hulu. Yeah. Anyway, that was a fun rewatch. I had not watched those in a very long time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Romulus. How about you, Jeff?
So I did move this week, as you know, from last week, and it's been my brain more like it's been one of those things where like it's 7:30 p.m. and I'm like, what did I do all day? Like I know I haven't stopped, but I can't see what I've been spending 11 hours on. So I don't want to say I watched nothing. We definitely rewatched the Parent Trap, which is a personal favorite. There's an emotional.
Which
you,
one?
I just heard that. I heard that laugh.
Hey, they're making another one.
Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, no, they're making another one with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. There's the sequel coming.
Yes, it's
Oh my god.
No, they're making
doorbell is going on. There's so much stuff going on.
Go ahead. We're gonna take a break in a second anyway. We finished Palm Royale, which I'd already talked about. I will say it ends better than I was feeling a little saucy on it last week. I still think that there's so much more that they could have done, and it should not have been 10, 50-minute episodes for this comedy series. I don't know, the tone was all over the place. Tate, whatever your name is, from The Help. So anyway, we finished it, and then we were like assembling furniture, and we couldn't stop watching it. So it ended really well. So kudos to them for Palm Royale. But I think that's it. I think we're excited to get on with the rest of the shit. I think I'm excited to move on.
I almost finished. I have 2 episodes left of Normal People. It's so good. Right? Don't know why I'm going so slow with it, but it's lovely. It's really lovely. The work.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just the acting. It's really beautiful. I watched really fantastic.
I watched the other series by, I forget if it's the creator or the director of this series. Is it Hattie McDonald? Is it Sally Rooney? Maybe it's Sally Rooney. She did another show that it has like the exact same tone.
Maybe it's you like it?
I did. I mean, if you like this tone and you just need a little more of it, it's got to be Conversations with Friends. It's got to be that. Conversations with Friends. Yeah,
maybe that sounds like that would be right in the pocket.
So that was the food delivery. So tune in next week when I'm going to be out driving around Twister Alley trying to get my divorce papers signed.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, especially after watching Brief Encounter, that's for sure. Okay, cool. We're going to take a quick break to tell you what movie we're doing from 2012. So listen to some Dasein for a second while we make a big decision. People will see you in 2 seconds. Listen to Dasein.
We couldn't have done this 5 minutes earlier?
Nope.
And we're back.
I'm back. And I don't have to go again.
We are so excited that we made our choice for 2012, a year that I feel like we've talked about a lot of these movies in previous episodes. Which movies did we talk about? You'll have to join us next week.
Fucking all of them. Like, pretty much.
All of them. Fucking all of them. It does feel like we've talked about all of them. No, we're going out of left field. We've done this a couple times where we've done some international films that reached our shores. We love Mads Mikkelsen, and this is a film that I think is going to spark some really great conversation that's on Prime Video. Friends, we are doing The Hunt.
The Hunt
by Thomas Vinterberg.
And it's on Prime, it's on Canopy, it's on...
Hunt.
The Hunt.
Jesus Christ.
Please join us next week where we talk about 2012 and The Hunt. See you, film.